this type of investment without the games. So I think any evaluation on cost, you need to see what is the source of the funding, and to think as well if this source would be mobilized or not without the games. And this is an aspect that we see very few in the debate. So it's not easy to do this comparison in a direct way. I think there are some important aspects is where the money came from and if this money would ever come to this country or this city without the games or not.
Can I just also address the question, not about Rio, but about legacies in general? I think in London we spent in total £9 billion on the Olympics, and there were lots and lots of points along the way where people got very cross about that. A particular moment was when the budget for the opening ceremony increased by £30 million at a time when actually, as a result of the economic challenges in the run-up to 2012, there was a lot of anger about that. When the opening ceremony happened and everyone loved it and James Bond and the Queen jumped out of the helicopter and so on, no one talked about that 30 million anymore. But you can't do that all the time. The really critical thing, and it goes back, I think, to Eduardo's point about evaluation. The things after the Games that really started to make a difference were when, for example, London overtook Paris as the most visited city in Europe. And actually the economic evaluation showed that in the 2 and 3 years after 2012, the amount of additional tourism that came to London and the amount of additional income that came to London probably paid back most of that £9 billion on its own, without any other legacy. And that story is not well understood in the UK, but it really helped to kind of move that story on. We did a very big event in the London Olympic Park last month where we said that actually the regeneration of East London was ahead of schedule, and there were over 1 million extra jobs that had been created since the Games, and we were 100,000 jobs ahead of schedule, further forward than we thought we would be at this point. So actually the people that need the work, good employment the most were getting it. So I think the really critical thing, and I'm conscious of how many students are in the room, are finding, and I think, you know, the IOC, we've heard today about their strategies changing and coming forward, and we'll be hearing more about that in the future. I think the challenge really is back to the academic world and working in partnership with the IOC. How can we find even more effective ways to understand that? And then the next thing from the evaluation is how do you personalize it so it means something to someone sitting in a city 5 years after their Games, and that actually really resonates with them. And I think those are the things that actually this room can add a huge amount of value to as we go forward.
Okay, I can see that there is someone really keen. It was supposed to be the last question, but let's open for another one.
Yes, thank you. It's going to be the last question. My name is Tatiana. I'm from Belarus, and I'm a two-time Olympic athlete from a developing country and from the country that will never host Olympic Games. So when we're talking about Olympic legacy, you mean Olympic legacy only for the host country, or IOC consider other countries that participate in Olympic Games? And what Olympic legacy do you mean if that legacy exists? So I guess maybe it's a question for Tanya or whoever wants to answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's a very good question. In fact, you are an Olympic legacy yourself, having taken part in the Olympic Games, and you are one of our ambassadors to spread Olympism as well as the Olympic value. You're absolutely right. I think today what we have been focusing is really the legacy of the host cities. But the games itself, we attract Summer Games. We have the full number of NOCs taking part, and every NOC will bring a number of athletes, so we want to ensure universality of athletes taking part in the games. And with the games itself, during the games, we have Olympic broadcasting that bring the games to all corners of the world, billions of viewers, and especially nowadays with social media, the spread and the reach is even wider. So definitely, the games and the legacy is not just strictly for the host cities themselves. At the same time, we have started the Olympic channels so that the legacy can be spread to everyone 365 days a year, beyond just during the games period. What else can we do? More for the cities that they are not taking part. Summer Games is very clear. Every country is involved. Every NOC is involved. Winter Games, I think we are also seeing more and more now. And even for cities or countries that have no winter sports environment. Just yesterday, I heard that one of our short track skaters would be having a qualifying place for the PyeongChang Games. Singapore, summer countries, we have only 2 ice rinks. So yes, we are getting very excited because we have a Olympic champion from Korea who has been coaching our short track skaters. So definitely, you are right. When we talk about legacy in the broader sense, it's for everyone, not just the host cities.
Just to finalize, I will
Yep.
just give, starting with Mr. Chawai,
Yeah,
a last thought for each of the members of the panel.
Yeah, just to add up to what Mr. Miang said, and then following up from Tatiana's question, I think it is true. Developing countries it's going to be a miracle for them to host now, or probably maybe in the years to come. But we should also have in mind that legacies are documented and they serve as benchmarks for developing countries. You can't do everything, but these legacies are a lot. And as a developing country, you can pick the one that suits you the most and learn from it. A very good example is Ghana. We've not hosted Olympic Games before, but we've embedded the Olympic Value Education Program or the Olympic Education Program in our PE curriculum, which is taught in schools, in high schools. We've not hosted the Olympic Games, but I think this is a good legacy over the years that have been done by other countries for us to follow. And secondly, to add to the London 2012 Olympic Games, which I was very fortunate because London 2012 said, we're going to touch the lives of 12 million children in 20 countries. That was the promise. I was very fortunate to manage the Ghana project. And so I was working and reporting to UK Sports and Youth Sports Trust in this regard. And then again, we've not hosted Olympic Games, but this is the opportunity we have to, inspire other youth through sport for development programs, through value-based education programs, which sometimes I think we forget to talk about when we talk about legacies. Because, for instance, we can talk about the immediate impact, the structural impact, which is more direct. These are other things that have not really been spoken about. But it left clubs in schools in Ghana where kids have been inspired beyond imagination. So these are some of the things. Developing countries cannot host now, but we can take 1 or 2 things from, let's say, the Vancouver Games, from London 2012, from the Rio 2016, and then apply it in our context. Thank you.
Yeah, to finish, I think I might sound very negative about Rio. And maybe because for being from there, you have another idea of priorities. But I think it's also a matter of responsibilities. Some things are just not IOC's fault, for example. Our governor during the Olympic Games is now arrested. The biggest construction company involved in the games went through a corruption scandal. So there are other aspects that run behind the Olympic Games that are not IOC or legacy fault. It depends on people and their really intention to leave something better for society. So I do believe that sport can help. I believe in Agenda 2020, if not because of, maybe not everyone has the best intentions, but I think there is no other option now. The Olympic movement knows that public opinion is going to put more and more pressure. So, or you have to invest in legacy, yes or yes. And I think that's reality. There are very positive things about Rio, some negative, and during the very inspirational speeches I was making this comparison game that I know it's not fair because the realities from the countries are different. But one thing, when Mr. Ji Chul-oh, that I don't know if the pronunciation is all right, he mentioned about the Olympic Park in Seoul. And this was one of the first places I visited when I arrived in Korea. And it's beautiful. You go there and you see families playing, you see couples having picnic, you see the Olympic Museum, you see restaurants, you see there's life there 30 years after the Olympic Games. And I really hope I get to see the same in Rio, and I really hope I take my family there. Now, 1 year after the Games, that's not the reality. Maybe it's going to be easier to see in 4 or 5 years like happened to London. And I'm really looking forward to it.
저희 이제 평창 올림픽은 그 아까 말씀드린 대로 이제 뉴 호라이즌이라는 비전, 그다음에 이제 패션 커넥티드라는 그 슬로건을 가지고 이제 지금 준비를 하고 있는데요. 그래서 뉴 호라이즌스라는 게 새로운 스포츠 시장, 우리 쪽 입장에서 보면 그러니까 아시아 시장에서 하계 올림픽은 202개국 이상이 참가를 합니다. 근데 동계는 지금까지 이제 70개 내지 80개 이렇게 참여를 해서 올림피즘에 맞지 않다. 200개국이 넘는데 3분의 1밖에 참여를 안 한다는 게 올림픽 정신에 맞지 않다. 이제 그런 의미에서 우리가 여기서 올림픽을 개최함으로써 더 많은 나라가 그 동계 올림픽에 관심을 갖지 않는 나라가 더 많이 갖게 하자는 게 저희 목표였고, 저희가 유치 과정에서도 2번 떨어지고 3번째 되면서도 10년간 강원도에서 1000명의 그 스케이팅을 하지 않는, 눈이 내리지 않는 나라 어린이들을 계속해서 초청을 해서 스키를 가르쳐주고 스케이팅을 가르쳐줬습니다. 그게 사실 저희가 이제 더반에서 올림픽을 유치하는데 아주 큰 장점이 됐습니다. 그래서 저희 이 동계 올림픽이 우리나라뿐만 아니라 이제 이 동계 스포츠가 발달되지 않은 많은 나라에 어떤 그 영감을 주어갖고 더 많은 사람들이 동계 올림픽을 즐길 수 있게 이렇게 되는 게 어떻게 보면 이제 큰 아까 질문하신 분의 그 답이기도 하고요. 아까 이제 인사말을 하긴 했는데 다시 한번 당부를 드리는 의미에서 사실 저희가 이제 아까도 말씀드렸지만 그 시큐리티 그 안전 이슈하고 그다음에 최근에 이제 입장 티켓이 좀 구매가 잘 안 팔리는 그런 이슈가 있어서 걱정을 했는데 이제 그 한 단계는 넘어간 것 같습니다. 2가지. 그래서 지금 이제 겨울 그 평창이 워낙 춥습니다. 지금 뭐 벌써 영하 7도까지 내려가고 어제도 제가 이제 그 주경기장 그 개폐막식장 점검 때문에 밤에 좀 갔었는데 굉장히 추운데 이제 그 걱정들을 지금 너무 많이 하셔갖고 너무 많은 각계 이제 의견을 주시고 있는데 사실 이제 저도 여러 군데 다녀봤지만 겨울 스포츠는 스키 타러 갈 때 두꺼운 잠바 입고 그 추운데 구르기 위해서 사실 그 즐기기 위해서 가는 게 동계 스포츠의 핵심이거든요. 그래서 동계 스포츠는 추운 데서 즐긴다라는 게 기본 정신인데 나는 추운 데서 경기를 볼 수 없어 이런 의견들이 너무나 많아서 그 부분에 대해서 지금 저희가 이제 조금 어려움을 겪고 있는데 어떻든 저희가 그 부분에 동계 스포츠를 어떻게 즐길 건지에 대해서 조금 더 커뮤니케이션을 하고 그게 이제 국민들이 좀 공감할 수 있고 또 더 많은 분들이 경기에 참여해서 즐길 수 있게 하려고 노력합니다. 그래서 여기 계신 분들은 스포츠 쪽에 또 관심이 많은 분들이니까 그런 면에서 좀 서포트를 부탁합니다.
Well, that was a bit funny because on the opening day of the Vancouver Games, the temperature was 16 degrees. People were playing golf. I would have liked your -7 degrees. Thank you very much. Nobody had a heavy coat on. The question that this young man asked about, the relationship between the public and the cost and what's left behind is enormously important. And the thing is that what can happen and does happen, and this is not so much necessarily an Olympic issue, but it's an issue for projects like this, is that there's sometimes a tendency to think that you're doing this for your community, when in actual fact you should be doing this with your community. This is a project that you all do together, and if you want the public to support and appreciate and meet you halfway on what it takes to stage a project like the Olympic Games, then you have to talk to them like they're your partner. In the build-up to the Vancouver bid for the Olympic Games, there was a great debate about what would happen in Vancouver. People thought we would spend too much money. People thought we would not do a good job. People thought all kinds of things. So we could either let that continue or engage with the public. So for those 2 years, we had 1,500 public meetings. We talked to everyone. We invited everybody to contribute, to give us input, to help mold the plan to stage the games. And we tried to build consensus for the strategy. Had we failed, we would not have bid. And I think the work that goes into the preparation is really important, that to go to the IOC united and present yourselves as a united country. The vision for the Vancouver Olympic Games was to unite Canada, to give every Canadian a relationship with the Olympics. Had we presented our credentials and we'd had a divided public, we would have had no credibility. So it is important to try to be aligned with how the public feel about your project, and to try to design a project that touches everyone in some profound and meaningful way, so they can see their own legacy in the games that you have just organized.
As you may know, Japan will host the Rugby World Cup 2019, and also the 2020 is our Tokyo Olympic and Paralympic Games, and 2021 we're going to host the Kansai Master Games. So even the Olympic game is the giant, but the thing is we need to much more efficient. So the Tokyo Organizing Committee have a trilateral agreement with the Rugby World Cup organizations, organizing committee, and also the Kansai Master, the organizing committee, to share the experience, and also they are much more efficient to use the open call, the volunteers, and also the securities. So we needed to much more efficient to also to communicate with the public, and also transport the economic impact, not only the Japan, not only the venue cities, and not only only the Japan, and also that we have the trilateral the agreement with the PyeongChang game and the Beijing game. So we all eager to get together and to bring it more the effective and enormous Olympic legacy, so people can have the Olympic game is the dream, the people's dream, athlete dream, and the developing countries, their athlete dream. So we believe the Olympic deliver the dreams come true, and the Olympic magic with the legacy strategy.
Perhaps let me first of all just put in the perspective of Rio's bid and Rio's games. When Rio was bidding and when the decision was taken in 2009, Brazil was one of the strongest economy, growing at a phenomenal rates, and is one of the BRIC countries. It was unfortunate that things changed over the 7 years in the organization of the games, as well as when corruption or alleged corruption was involved. Then I think the complexity sort of changed. But Rio, if you are being objective, it was a successful game. It has left behind a very strong legacy as far as infrastructure development is concerned. So when you look at the games cost, we're looking at non-games costs that countries will spend on infrastructure development versus operating costs, which will only be spent because you are organizing the games. So I think when you want to, and it's always very confusing to the public, especially to media, but sometimes the media purposely want to be confused. So they will throw big numbers like 52 billion in organizing the Sochi Games, and so on and so forth. So I hope as master programs students, you will understand this, and it will help us to explain as well. Today, I think we have a wonderful discussion on legacies and how we move on legacy in the future. That sort of form the basis for future bids, because you want to know why you want to bid, what benefit it's going to give to your cities, and therefore you bid. So I think we have a good discussion. But fundamentally, I think there was also some question raised earlier on about different issues. Fundamentally, I think Pierre de Coubertin re-innovated the modern Olympic Games because he believes of educating youth through sports. And I think that's something which we're not discussing today, but I think it's something that is important, that is fundamental to our whole movement, and that we want to make the world a better place through sport. So these are really the fundamental things that sort of, in a way, would drive legacy as well. So I think it's something probably the Dream Together program would want to take up at some appropriate opportunities in the future. But thank you very much for this opportunity to discuss our legacy. And I want to just take this opportunity also to wish PyeongChang every success in the games, and that the Korean athletes will perform well to meet your target of 8 goals at least, and it will be a big success, and that will drive PyeongChang's legacy. So thank you very much.
I've talked quite a lot about process in my presentation and in answers and so on, and actually what I wanted to say, just in terms of a 30-second closing summing up, is the Olympics and the Olympic Games are absolutely, as several people have said, a force for good, quite an amazing thing. I also wish PyeongChang the very best. I wish Tokyo the very best. I have no doubt that they will be absolutely phenomenal games. If I think about the two things that I remember most powerfully from my experiences, they're not about the sport, they're not about the challenges that we went through in delivering the games, they're not about the successes afterwards. But during 2012, there was a moment late in the evening, halfway through the games in central London, when I was running to a meeting, and coming the other way was a middle-aged woman. She was a volunteer, she was in the volunteer's uniform, and she looked ahead of her and she saw that standing on the pavement in front of her, there were about 100 teenage school children waiting to get on a coach. And she looked slightly anxious because they were teenagers and they do what teenagers do. They were listening to music and they were being boisterous, and I think she was a little bit intimidated to jog past them. And when they saw that she was in her volunteer's uniform, they all stopped, they all stood in a straight line and they applauded her as she ran past. And that was something that I have never seen. I've lived in London all my life, I have never seen before. And it absolutely melted my heart. And this summer, we had the athletics and the para-athletics in the stadium, walking through the Olympic Park, this fantastic legacy of 2012. And on 2 days of the para-athletics, the Mayor of London arranged for every school child in London to have a free ticket to come and see the para-athletics. So we had 2 mornings in a row where we had between 40 and 50,000 school children coming to watch an event in the Olympic Stadium. That was a great legacy in its own right. There is nothing more powerful than standing in a park 2 days in a row and seeing 40 or 50,000 children coming in pairs ranging from teenagers to 5-year-old children, wearing high-vis jackets, walking. It's an incessant parade of children. It took 2 hours to get them all into the stadium. And again, it melts your heart just to see that amazing thing. So I would say for everyone in the room this is a really good thing. And no matter how challenging it is, if you get the chance to be part of it, if you get the chance to help improve it and make it even better, please do so. Because I think PyeongChang and Tokyo will have those moments, every future game will have those moments, and making sure that we can continue to deliver them and make them even better. It's a great challenge, but it's a really worthwhile challenge.
In the same context as Mr. Fletcher said before, the success of any games depends on how to win people's heart, I believe. Now, number one is make people feel proud of the games, throughout the games, after the games. And my second message is make always go together with the people. That's the most important thing to get the success of the games.
I would like to thank you all the participants. I know we a little bit, we passed the time a little bit, but it's my task now to do a very quick summary, and I will be really quick. We heard here, I think, that legacy is not without challenges, but as a conclusion, there are two important things that were said here today and that really stick to my mind. It's about sport and it's about people, how you do it with people and how you create this engagement. So keeping in mind that legacy is the why we are doing, and the why is people. So thank you very much.
And please give a big round of applause to Ms. Braga and all the speakers for that wonderful discussion. May I ask you all to please remain on stage, because we would like to present a token of our appreciation for your participation in this forum. Professor Kang Jun-ho, Director of the program, the Dream Together Seoul Forum. Professor Kang will be joining us soon, and he will present the Plaques of Appreciation. First, may I ask Mr. Miang, IOC member, to please step forward. So if I read out what's written on the plaque, Mr. Miang, IOC Executive Board Member, in grateful appreciation for your esteemed presence as a speaker at Dream Together Seoul Forum 2017. Your valuable insight and expertise significantly contributed to the great success of the forum and future sport development. November 24th, 2017. Kang Jun-ho. Thank you very much. Next, Dr. Oh Ji-chul, former Vice Minister of Culture, Sports and Tourism. The wording of the plaque is the same as before. Please give another big applause to Dr. Oh. Next, Mr. John Furlong, would you please step forward? Former President and CEO of Vancouver Organizing Committee, we thank you very much for your participation today. Thank you. Next up, Mr. Ben Fletcher, would you please step forward? Thank you for sharing your insights from the London 2012 Games. And next, Mr. Kim Joo-ho, would you please give a big round of applause to him to cheer him on and wish for a successful PyeongChang Games as well. And could we also have a big round of applause for Ms. Hiromi Kawamura to encourage her in their preparations for the Tokyo 2020 Games. And last but certainly not least, we'd like to thank Ms. Tanya Braga, Head of Legacy at the IOC, for leading us in that wonderful panel discussion. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And unfortunately, we don't have plaques of appreciation for our 2 students, but I hope the experience enough it was gratitude enough. And yes, a big round of applause. And once again, may I ask all of our speakers to step forward for one last group photo. Actually, we will have 2 group photos, one with just the speakers, and then we'd like to invite the students up for big group photos. But first, would you step forward for a group photo of the speakers with your nice plaques of appreciation? Ladies and gentlemen, would you please give another round of applause for our great speakers? Thank you very much. And now would the students from the DTS like to join us on stage? We will have one big, happy group photo. Thank you. So please join us on stage. Yes, right on stage. Maybe if you want to ensure that your faces are shown, maybe you'd like to also try to take some kneeling or in front. Yes, maybe also a second row in front of the stage would also be good. I think that would be good. Maybe 2 or 3 layers would be good so that everyone can come out in the photo. Okay, so do we have everyone? Make sure that your face is visible to our cameras. In between the faces, make sure that you're visible. And big smiles. You can also say kimchi or PyeongChang. Fighting, yes. Should we do the fighting? 1, 2, 3, fighting! All right, thank you all very, very much. This marks the end of the Dream Together Seoul Forum 2017. Thank you all for your participation, and we hope to see you all in PyeongChang in February. Thank you very much.
Humus'u handle edeceğim.